Today in your 2016 BMW X3, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install CURT's Class 3 2-inch trailer hitch receiver. The crossbar is going to be completely hidden behind the bumper, so you're only going to be able to see the receiver tube here at the back. It's a Class 3 2-inch by 2-inch receiver, so it's going to be great for all of your towing needs. Whether you're hooking up a small trailer or a jet ski trailer for the weekend, or you want to put some bike racks on the back, load it up with bikes and hit the trails. It uses a 5/8" hitch pin and clip. Now, one doesn't come included with this hitch, but you can purchase one here at etrailer.com. It features hoop-style safety chain loops, and these have a nice large opening that should accommodate just about every shape, size, and style of safety chain. It features a 350-pound tongue weight, and that's the force going down on top of the receiver, and a 3,500-pound gross towing capacity, and that's how much it can pull behind it. It is rated for weight distribution, so if you were to purchase a weight distribution system, it would increase your tongue weight up to 400 pounds and your gross towing capacity up to 4,000 pounds. Weight distribution systems allow the weight that's loaded on the back of your trailer and helps redistribute it to the front axle to level out your vehicle. This can help restore lost handling and braking performance. And as always, I recommend you check your vehicle's owner's manual to ensure you don't exceed any of its towing capacities. Now I've got a few measurements for you to help you when deciding on accessories. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of the rear bumper, it measures about 3.5 inches. This is important when determining if any of your folding accessories can be placed in the upright storage position without contacting the bumper. And from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube, it measures about 13 inches. This is important when determining if you need a drop rise or raise shank on any of your accessories. This one here is getting close to being fairly low, so a raised shank would probably be recommended for most of your accessories. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let's go over the installation together so you can have the confidence to do it at home. We'll begin our installation underneath the vehicle. We need to remove the trim panel located here at the bottom. There's going to be several bolts along the outside. We'll use an 8mm socket for those, and there are going to be a few bolts further up on the inside, and you'll use a 10mm socket for those. We can now remove our panel. You just want to pull downward, and we'll set it aside. Now behind your wheel on each side, you're going to have 2 bolts on the bottom and 1 bolt on the fender liner that we're going to remove with an 8mm socket. You'll take those out on the other side as well. We'll now need to remove some rivets from our trim piece here. You really only need to go back far enough to where you can get this piece off, as there's some bolts below it. So we don't need to remove all of them. We're probably going to stop about here at about straight up off the tire, maybe slightly towards the rear, and so we can just get that pulled back a bit. You can take a punch with a center punch and knock out the center. However, it's quite difficult to do that. So the other option is to drill out the center with a small drill bit. And then the rivet will come right out. You'll repeat that for the remaining rivets on this side until we hit about that midway point here, and then do the exact same thing on the other side. Now we can pull our trim panel back to access the bolts located underneath. We're just gently pulling it back piece by piece until we can access the bolts here. We'll need to remove that bolt and this bolt with an 8mm socket, and then we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. We're now at the back of the vehicle with our lift gate open. We're going to remove our taillight assemblies. You'll need to remove the plastic cover located here, and this just pulls off. You kind of want to pull towards the center of the vehicle to get it to release. We'll do the same thing on the other side to expose our bolts, and then we'll remove the bolts on each side using a 10mm socket. We'll now remove our taillight assembly by pulling straight rearward. Sometimes it can be difficult to get out, so I would recommend you use a plastic trim panel tool like this with a nice big wide blade to help pry it rearward as you pull. Once we've got it released, there's a plug on the inside we'll need to disconnect. Press in on the release tab there, and then pull it away. We'll do the same thing on the other side. On the top of your bumper next to each taillight, you'll find a bolt. We're going to remove that with an 8mm socket. And we're also going to remove the one on the other side. Behind your reflectors, you'll also have bolts, so you'll need to gently pry off the reflector. You'll want to use a plastic trim panel tool to get behind it to help pry it out. They are very fragile. Once you've got it popped out, you can set it aside and remove the bolt beneath it. There's going to be another reflector on the other side with a similar bolt just behind it. We can now remove our bumper cover. We're going to start on one side, popping it loose, and then working our way across towards the middle. Down inside of there, they might be a little tight, so you might need to take a small screwdriver or trim panel tool to press in on the release tabs to get those to pop free. Now we'll grab an extra set of hands to help us remove our fascia. We've got each side loose, so we're just going to grab the bottom and just pull outward. Then disconnect the electrical connector located in the middle. There's 2 release tabs, one on each side. Pull those and disconnect it, and then set your fascia aside where it won't get damaged. Beneath our fascia, we'll need to remove the plastic molding here. There's going to be several bolts you'll take out with a 10mm socket. Each one's kind of got like a recessed area where the bolts would be. We can then remove these pieces. There is some wiring on it, so you'll want to disconnect any wiring that's found on those. And the wires are attached here, so you can pry them off. If you get to the back side of it, sometimes it can be easier because you can push it out from the back side. It's not always the case, but sometimes it can help. We can then set this aside, and we'll take our other one off and set that aside as well. Well, next we'll be removing our bumper beam, but there's an additional wire connection that you need to take off of it. It's easier to do this before you take the beam loose, so just pry that out of there, so that way there's no wiring still connected to it. We'll now remove our bumper beam. We're going to be using an 18mm socket to remove the 2 bolts that you'll have on each side. I like to take one of the nuts on each side and just thread it on a couple of turns just to keep the bumper from falling off as we take the hardware loose on the other side. With all of our hardware loose, we'll slide our bumper beam off. Take our hitch, we're going to slide it on. Then grab our bumper beam and slide it back on top. We'll now reinstall the nuts we just took off to reinstall the bumper beam over our new hitch. We'll then tighten them back down. And now we can go back and torque our hardware to the specifications found in our instructions. We can now take the plastic pieces that we removed underneath our fascia. We're just going to mock it up at this point, line up the holes. You're not going to be able to reinstall it, however, until you trim around the hitch. Kind of just want to see where that is, make a note of it, and then we'll use a rotary tool to trim out that section. You don't want to go all the way up because you want this to stay one solid piece, but it's okay to go up to the 90-degree bend here at the top. Now that we've got it trimmed out and we've tested the fit, it went over all of our studs and it's nice and flush, we can reinstall the hardware. And then we're going to repeat the same process for the plastic piece on the other side here. After reinstalling this side, you can pop your wiring back in and plug in your connectors there. And then we're just going to reinstall our fascia now in reverse order of how we took it off. Take the plastic rivets that come in your kit, put it into your rivet gun. That'll be the smaller end. Slide it up into place and then activate the tool to snap the end of the rivet off and lock it in place. Repeat this for each rivet that you had removed previously. Sometimes it requires multiple times to break the rivet and get it to lock in place. Next, we're going to need to trim out our under panel so it can fit back on with our hitch in place. I recommend that you hold it up there and then mark it around your receiver there so you can cut it out. And then when you cut it out, you're going to need to go basically all the way to the back of this side because that's about where the end of the receiver ends there. You can trim it kind of tight by keeping it close to the 2-inch receiver here, and you can kind of work it around your safety chain loops, or you could just cut it on each side of the safety chain loop and then it'll install a little easier, but you will have a little bit of gap around it. Since it's underneath, it's not that noticeable, so it's up to you how tightly you want it to fit around your hitch. After you've cut it, you can go ahead and lift your panel back into position. There we go. And then reinstall all of your hardware. And that completes our installation of CURT's 2-inch trailer hitch receiver on our 2016 BMW X3.